Today we're going to talk about an art form called pitching. Now, pitching is front-loaded. You have to get people's attention right away. It can be verbal or it can be verbal with slides. Pitching is very, very focused. You are pitching for a specific purpose and a specific reason. And today we'll talk about what is the definition of pitching, what are the keys to having a good pitch, how do you execute, and also two cases, the business case and the engineering case, and they're both a little bit different. So what is pitching? Pitching is a story, compelling story. Before you pitch, you have to know your story. This isn't a conversation. This is a pitch, and it has to spark interest. Of course, everything in communication starts out with the objective. What are the keys to making a good pitch? So you have to know what is your purpose. In elevator pitch, if you have a really good idea, you should be able to tell me within a couple of lines what it is and draw my interest in. What are you solving? Why should I be interested in what you're offering me? You have to design your journey just like our standard storytelling. What are the key points? What's the transition? And you have to make it brisk. You have to use word economy, which is something I say over and over again. Timing. Are you syncing with the audience? Why do they want to hear your pitch right then and there? Sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes you can plan for it. Maybe you're talking to a company that has a real need right now. Perform. It's still about storytelling. It's still about acting. Sound and mannerisms matter. What you're telling them, is it going to be memorable? If it's not memorable, they're not going to be interested. The story has to stay with them. And then at the end, you have to have an ask. Why did you tell this story? There has to be, what's the payoff and conclusion? What is it that you want from them? Remember The Economist? Story, picture, numbers. This is what your presentation in a pitch revolves around. To execute for a story, before you present, sometimes you can't memorize 15 minutes. It's just too long. So the way to do it is, and this is why you have primary points, because if you can get from one point to another, you can memorize 5 things. You can't memorize 15 minutes worth of words. But the way to prepare yourself is, if you can't think through the entire thing, just memorize the first 3 sentences. That way, when you get up there, you're going to be able to get started. And then once you get into the flow, you'll be okay. In terms of going somewhere to pitch, back up a memory stick in case, you sent them the file, but they may not have it. If you can, pre-check your room ahead of time. Listen to the acoustics. Look at how your colors look on the projector. And if you have familiarity, then you have more comfort coming into a room. If you can sound check, because sometimes you're going to have to talk into microphones and things like that. I think I might have told you this story of my poor roommate. He had a stuffy nose and he didn't sound check and he got too close to the microphone and he kept going, yeah, that got people to cringe. Anyway, don't read from a script. Don't sit there reading. And some students do this. And the script is actually pretty good. It's pretty fine. Here's the problem. It's not natural. And not only that, but when you're pitching, it's implied that you are the expert in this field. And so if you can't do this off of the top of your head, why should I have any faith in you? And naturally, you question prep. You get people together. You figure out, what do you need to anticipate for? In my doctorate's exam, they call the candidate's exam, which is an oral exam in front of 3 hostile professors. Typically, a student spends a month to prepare for it. I had 1 week. And there was an entire section of technology that I just didn't have time to study. And so, I have to be honest, I was getting stressed out. So what did I do? I sat down and anticipated, okay, what questions would they probably ask me? So I came up with a list of 50 questions. And then I pulled aside the department's expert, the student expert on this, and I asked him all 50 questions, and he told me the answers to all of them. And then when I went into my candidates exam, 30 of those questions I asked. So anticipate, understand what it is they want to do. So your delivery in a pitch matters. Now, if you have a longer pitch or whatever, make sure you dress properly. Are you dressed for the occasion? If it's a little bit more, relaxed, then you can get away with just a button-down shirt. On the other hand, if it's formal, wear a suit. Your mannerisms, does it emphasize what you want to do? And also, are you in control? Make eye contact with the audience, constantly be revolving around the audience so you look like you're talking to everyone. If you don't like eye contact, it throws you off, remember, just look at the tops of their heads. Modulate your voice, the pacing, the emphasis. Do you do this in your storytelling? If you decide to use animation, be careful, because typically when you try to use animation, there's always a pause or something, and you lose the momentum of what you're talking about. Not only that, a lot of times videos just seem like an excuse for you not to talk. If you have another speaker to go to, make sure your transitions are clean when you go from one person to another. Maybe within your own talk, there's more than one speaker. When you transition, at least throw in a sentence or two where you introduce someone. Don't read the screen. Every time, it's okay to glance at the screen. And again, remember what I said about pictures? When you look at pictures, all of a sudden it comes to you what it's about as opposed to bullet points. And so, tell the story of the screen. They know how to read. Well, at least you hope they know how to read. Anyway, and also relax. One thing that, and actually for those of you who take TEM102, I talk about this, but one of the most important things to deal with stress, and you're under stress when you're up there, is breathe. And what breathe does is it brings in fresh oxygen. If you ever look at the oxygen level in your blood, it's typically, well, for those of you who are really good athletes, it's like 99 to 100. For most people, it can be down to like 95, 96. But if you take deep breaths and bring in fresh oxygen, it rejuvenates your brain, and also your blood oxygen level all of a sudden jumps up to like 90, 98 or 99. And so the key to breathing is breathe through your nose. The reason why you breathe through your nose is because your diaphragm is basically pulling down and pulling the air in. If you breathe through your mouth, then you're using your lungs. And as you can imagine, your lungs will get you tired. That's why I always crack about athletes. They're like, it's like, you do realize you're making yourself a lot more tired, aren't you? So the thing is, sometimes you shut your eyes, but just get yourself to relax. Also, move around a little bit. Just don't stand there, especially behind a computer. You want to talk to the audience. You want to get down with the people. At graduation, because I'm a chair, I can actually sit on the graduation stage. And so people just stand up there, and so the people who organize this said, where do you want to sit? And I said, I want to sit on the floor. To me, the entire point of graduation is to get, down with the students. And so what happens is that after you get your diploma and come down off the stage, I will be sitting there waiting for you to shake your hand and to congratulate you. And to me, that's the entire point of being at a graduation. Got to move. Now, prepare yourself for when things go wrong. What if you lose a projector? Are you prepared to go on? What if there's no sound? Meaning most large rooms have good acoustics. However, some don't. Some are just too cavernous. And so, are you used to raising your voice to that level? Maybe some of you don't have a voice that resonates that much. What are you going to do? If you're really in severe discomfort and can't go, it's okay to tell people that something's wrong and, ask for forgiveness. Life happens. If you freeze, and I've told you this before, have a go-to line that'll buy yourself a few seconds. because it's uncomfortable for everybody when you don't say anything. And that's why I was so proud of my little granddaughter when I said, "So did you listen to Grandpa? Did you come up with a line?" And then she said to me, "I was born at a young age." Not only that, I find it funny. Dumb mistakes to avoid. And this happens, and it happens a lot. And it's because people aren't prepared. For example, don't block the screen. Watch your feet. Some people, depending on where the projector is, a lot of times some people like get in the way of the projector. Try to avoid dead air where you're there like, or whatever. Pronunciation actually matters. Spelling. You got spell checkers. They don't forget spelling. If you read this, you can see what the meaning is. Yes, it's a Christmas greeting. What's missing? That's right, Noel. Anyway, props. If you're going to use props, they better work. The all-time disaster was Elon Musk breaking that vehicle. Body language. Don't sit there with folded arms or your hands in your pocket or whatever. Be at ease. And if you can avoid it, don't turn your back on the audience, because that's insulting. So minimize it. Sometimes you have to turn around and look at things. However, make it as quick as possible. Animation can help you a lot, because something that's inherently static, at least you can make it a little bit more dynamic. And you see me use animation all the time. And there are different kinds of animation. Sometimes I use the one where you can actually pick the path that something moves, or maybe a spinning wheel or something like that. A lot depends on what it is you're trying to do. Care, believe, join. This is what entrepreneurial pitching is about. I'm just going to race through this because you know what it's all about. That we care about and value three things. Believing comes down to logic. And do they believe you? Like, for example, today, a lot of our politicians we don't believe because they don't have any credibility. We don't trust them. And also, what is it are you touching on? You're touching on intelligence, is it emotions, imagination? And finally, joining. The way to get them to join is, what are they there for? To see whether or not they want to spend money. And so, making an argument about that, the economic part matters a lot. And so, to get started, just map it out. Come up with 3 reasons for each. What is going to be the journey that you're going to make arguments for? In the business case, why this industry and why this timing? For example, everybody's doing AI right now. If you say, I have an idea for an apps, who's going to listen to you? If you have a hostile or skeptical audience, maintain your discipline. Don't let them throw you off. Hold your ground. And that happens a lot in business cases. Your story typically has a lot of the elements of a hero story, that you're going through an ordeal and then you conquer it. And so take them through those details. You're competing against other social media. And that's that other people are posting things about this. What are you doing? And what's your roadmap for execution? And that's the timeline or whatever. What's your plan to do this? They're interested in that. There are 3 kinds of lengths to pitches. There's the short form, where you have 60 seconds to pitch your idea. Now, the reality of the elevator pitch is, no, people don't run into elevators. It's like, oh, there's Elon Musk, and then you have 60 seconds to pitch your idea. No, it doesn't work that way. However, why is it a good idea to come up with an elevator pitch? Number 1 is, remember I said storytelling is a diagnostic tool. You can figure out if your idea is legitimate. Number 2, the other thing an elevator pitch does is it gets people's attention. Because typically when you talk to people, all you get is 60 seconds and you have to make your case. One example of an elevator pitch is your resume. Meaning, this is the way hiring managers work. We get a stack of resumes. I give you 60 seconds to convince me. If there's something interesting in your resume, then I'll read the whole thing in detail. But most managers will just skim resumes because they don't have time to give all of them a lot of consideration. The next form of pitching is the short form, and this is about 3 to 10 minutes. This one, you have to be brisk. You have to hit the highlights. And then there's a long form, and this is where you can, like, for example, Jobs. What is Jobs doing? He's pitching Apple to the audience and to the customers of the world. But his plenary sessions typically will go like 30 minutes of him talking and then answering questions. But this one, you're allowed to take your time, but rarely do you get long form. Who is your audience? If you're looking for investors, it depends on what stage you are, and you'll learn more about this. Angel investors are very rich individuals that need to figure out where they want to park their money. I mean, they can only buy so many houses and so many cars. So they think it's cool that they're, part of a company. And VCs are typically when you want to raise $1 million or more. And VC money is actually a very small part of entrepreneurship, but it's the big money deals. One way to raise money without any people, indirectly using people, is crowdfunding. And so crowdfunding is a different kind of story. This is an example. And that's your headline's critical. You have to think about who your audience is, which is typically males. And today, crowdfunding is all about video. And people don't want to read things. They want to hear you talk. They want to hear you speak to them. And so how good your story is, your narrative, makes you or breaks you. I already talked about angel investors and VCs. Contrary to what people think, VCs only make 7 to 12 bets a year. And you think, oh, I get a deal from a VC. Now I have this money. No, the VCs follow you. They ask for seats on the board. You think they're going to give you your money and not watch? Their money and not watch it? No. And so the other thing is VCs always make money, and the reason why is they charge fees. Ooh, one startup I worked for, we made a really bad deal, I shouldn't call it a bad deal. We were kind of desperate, but we raised $5.9 million, which is a good sum. What people don't know is that we only saw 4.2 of it. The 1.6 million went to the investment bankers. Now, we talked about the business case and the engineering case when you're trying to do technical presentations and technical pitching. As first and foremost, when you think of your story, it's a story of innovation. Why is this superior? So now a lot of you are going to become engineers. So in the engineer's case of when you pitch, what's most important? Well, first, you're talking about some kind of innovation. The thing you have to be careful about here is that, yes, there are engineers in the room. However, there are a lot of managers, and managers get bored very easily. So you're trying to balance this technical and also business aspect. But what it comes down to is you're telling a story. And so whoever tells the best story typically wins. And this is where a lot of engineers lose. This is where I'm preparing you to become successful. First, there's the innovation story. At the heart of every technology is what is it that you're innovating. Managers are concerned about how you're going to execute. And now you're talking about project management and what's called the triple constraint. All projects are driven by 3 things. What resources do I need? How much time do I have? And what is it that I'm going to deliver? And those are the 3 knobs that you have to turn. Typically, you're telling us a hero's tale. You're fixing a problem. How are you positioned in the company? Or how is this going to position itself within the company? Is this a really hot area? Is this just maintenance or whatever? What is the company hungry for? My dad, who got promoted to a research fellow at DuPont, and in a corporation of 20,000 people and all those PhDs and everything, there were only 50 research fellows. And my dad told me the key to him getting it is they were really hungry for technology, and he delivered on it. Same thing. What is the roadmap of execution? And they're always concerned about risk. Managers are risk averse. They don't like to get surprised. We already talked about what goes into the pitch deck. And next, I'll show you what a pitch looks like. And it's a pitch that actually got Dr. Cho a $2 million offer that I turned down.